Hello, today I want to have a look at basic foiling techniques using the GoPress and Foil. This is a back to basics video aimed at beginners, people who have just got their GoPress and Foil or had it a little while and are feeling a bit unsure about what they can use, what they can do, how to do it. So I'm going to start with the very basics and talk about various different types of hot foil stamp and foils and cardstock, and try and cover all the beginner questions I see asked on Facebook. Okay, I'm admin on one of the GoPress groups on Facebook, currently called GoPress Foil and Everything Todo, although we welcome anyone who uses any of the similar hot foiling systems to come there and share their ideas, ask for help, just share the journey with getting to grips with foiling and the wonders therein. So I have my GoPress, it's plugged in, it's cold, I haven't warmed it up ready because I wanted to do this real time so you know exactly what to expect when you've got your machine at home. So it's plugged in. Here at the back where it says GoPress and Foil, next to there's a red LED. If I lift this you might get a better view of it just by my thumb here. It's red, it's on, it's not flashing or anything, it's just on, and that's kind of standby mode. It just shows you that the machine is plugged in. To make it get hot, next to the LED there's an on-off switch. It's just sort of buried in that label, and you press that and I find I sometimes have to press mine twice, but then you hear a click and the LED begins to flash. So let me hold that up, perhaps the camera will pick up the flashing. It's flashing red, okay, and that tells me that it's working on heating up the hot plate inside, and if I put my hand on there I can feel that starting to get warm. Okay, that will carry on flashing red until it gets to temperature, and then the LED goes green. Now that's going to take a couple of minutes. So while it's doing that, I'm going to swing the camera round and show you and talk about different types of hot foil stamp. Okay, so I'm trying to kind of keep the camera in one position and just swing it around so you can see what I do. So, hot foil stamps. So, this is a Couture Creations one, a nice little sentiment. Okay, they don't have a cutting edge. They're a flat metal plate with raised ridges. Now, the fact they're metal means the heat transfers through them, because heat is important for the foiling. Okay, so that's a sentiment one, and that's a sweet little floral pattern. Okay, so that's Couture Creations ones. I've got another one here that's a Craft Stash own brand one, and it's, you know, almost identical in the way it's made to the Couture Creations ones. Okay, and then I've got a Crafter's Companion hot foil stamp, one of their Gemini ones, and other than being a slightly different colour metal, it's exactly the same thing. It's not, the plate's not filled in, but it's ridges, quite thick ridges, on a metal backing. Okay, and again, very similar specifications. I've got Spellbinders one. Now again, different colour metal, but it's a metal plate with a raised area. You can see these are flatter. Not all of the Spellbinders ones are flat like that. It just happens to be the design of this one. There's another Spellbinders one here. This is much more ornate, and as you can see, thinner lines and thicker lines in that design. Okay, and then lastly I've got a Todo hot foil stamp, again metal plate, raised ridges. These are a tiny bit thicker than the ones from the other manufacturers, so I have to take that into account when I'm foiling. Okay, and I'll explain that as we go. Okay, so I've got that. Oh, and over here, I've got this beautiful plate. Now, this is a big hot foil plate. Okay, and it's kind of one of a kind at the moment. I hope there'll be more. But this is made by Crafter's Companion. This is their Pretty Peonies hot foil plate. And they've been very clever. They've managed to get very, very fine raised lines by making them not as deep all over. So there's some areas that are deep, like here, and then other areas it's just a fine etching. That works beautifully. And the reason I've included this one in my selection is because the amount of pressure you need to foil can vary with your cardstock and your foil, but also with the thickness of the lines that you're foiling. And the thinner the lines, the less pressure you need. So we'll have a look at that one a bit later on. Okay, I've also got some of the Couture Creations cut, foil and embossed dies. Now these they're a plate, very similar, and they've got raised ridges to do the foiling, but also at the very edge they've got a die cutting line around the edge. So those cut out and foil at the same time. I'm going to do a separate video on those, but I wanted to explain the difference. Okay, I've also got a butterfly one of those. And if you look at some of my projects in my other videos, you'll be able to see I've been using that one quite a lot. And again, that's got the ridges, but it's also got a cutting edge. You can also foil with normal cutting dies. So here's a die that cuts out an edge piece, and I could cut it out in cardboard and stick it down. But I could also foil with this and get the lines from the cutting edge to foil onto some cardstock. And then this is a tonic verso die. They're not the only people who do dies with a separate cutting edge. They do a die that's a matte, to cut a solid shape, and then they do their detail die. So you could foil with the detail die, and it will only foil where the cut lines are, but it won't cut out. And then I could use the verso edge to cut that out and end up with a flat piece of card, but with foiling on it. So we'll have a look at that as well. I'm aware that sometimes these videos get quite long, but then there's lots of information to pass on. Okay, my GoPress and Foil has reached its temperature. Okay, and I've sat here talking. I heard it click and the light went green. And because I've just left it, it sits there at green, and then as it stops heating when it's green, it sits there at temperature, and when it senses the temperature has started to drop, it starts heating again. The light flashes red to show you that it's doing that. So it's just gone green again. So I'm going to put a hot foil stamp on the GoPress to foil. Now, where shall I start? Shall I start with sport for choice? Let's start with this one. Okay, it's kind of got medium thickness lines. It's a fairly standard hot foil stamp. Okay, very pretty though. So I'm going to put that on my GoPress. Let me turn the camera. There we are. I did a back to basics video a while ago, but I've got a much better setup for recording now, so I thought I'd revisit. So I'm just going to put that kind of, just put it in the middle. Okay, I'm just gently put it on there with my fingers. I'm going to try not to touch it because it is quite hot now. You can. It's not going to burn you straight away if you just touch, but it feels very uncomfortable. Okay, so that's on there. That needs to warm up. Okay, the light is green, but it needs a few moments just to warm through. And I need to sort out some card and some foil. So I'm going to use a piece of this gold foil because it's the one I've got out at the moment. Now, let me turn the camera back. That's it. So I'm using This foil is a Create and Craft Core Collection gold foil. It's not as wide as the Couture Creations ones, but it works absolutely fine. Comes in a nice big roll, is great value when you can get it. They don't have it in stock very often. So that's my piece of foil, and I'm going to grab a piece of plain white card, okay, to begin with. And I'll also need, and because this is my machine and I'm going to use it with my die cutting machine, I have already worked out that I need 2 pieces of card to use as shims. Now, as you can see, these have been foiled on. Quite often if I do some foiling and it doesn't quite work, as that didn't down there, you know, then I will, you know, just keep the pieces of card to use as shims. Okay, so I've got a little packet that I keep shims in various sizes. Some pieces have been used as masks, so I keep that and just keep reusing them. Okay, I've always got some to hand in that way. So 2 layers of card as a shim and a piece of card to foil on. So let me turn the camera again. That's it. Right, so I'm just going to open the lid, place my foil on, put my piece of card over the top, put my shims on and close the lid. Now, because the hot foil stamp has been sitting there getting nice and warm, I can roll it straight away. So I'm just going to do that so you can see the die cutting machine as well. So there we are. So now I slide the hot foil, the hot plate off, and I can put it on the die cutting machine. And while it's off, on the base, the green light now flashes. So if a flashing green light shows you that the hot plate isn't pushed in to the connector at the back here. And then I'm going to roll it through my die cutting machine, slowly and gently. When I get to the hot foil stamp, I feel a very slight increase in resistance on the handle. And sometimes if it's got quite a square edge, you do get a small clonk sometimes. There we are. I'm going to put that down on my glass mat. There. So now I can show you how that's turned out. So I can open the lid, take my shims off, put those to one side, pick up my card, and the foil has stayed attached to it. And then I'm actually going to change my hot foil stamp for a different one. And I'm going to use this little one. And then while I'm talking about this, that one can be warming up. So I'm going to slide this back into the base. I'm going to show you doing that. So let me turn the camera. So this slides in and the green light is still flashing, and I slide it gently in, and as it goes in, the red light, it changes to a flashing red light to show me that it's now heating. Well, let me straighten the camera. That's it. Right, so this. Now, I don't find this ever gets old, the peeling back the foil. There. Now, I obviously did get that just right, I think. Now, let me see if the camera will pick this up. We look here, there's an extra little piece of foil. Let me try and get the camera to focus better. That's better. Right, so in one or two spots as I turn this round, oh, there was one, there are some extra little bits of foil just in the corners of the leaves. One just by my finger there. There you go, just in the corner of the leaf there. It doesn't quite have a, there, that's got it. There. So, sometimes those are attached to the card and sometimes they aren't. So before I do anything drastic, I'm just going to get a soft brush and brush over the top of this. I've just got a cheap soft brush. And let me try and get that to focus on there. Thank you. Okay. If I just go over that, those have disappeared mostly. I've got a couple of tiny bits of extra foil. There's one just inside that curl there. Not sure if we're going to pick it up. That's it. And get the light to glint off it. No, I can't get the camera to pick it up. You don't want to need a magnifying glass to see it anyway. But I will come and talk about overfoiling in a minute or two. Okay, so, but that Crafter's Companion hot foil stamp, GoPress and Foil machine, and Create and Craft foil. Okay, so there. So that's been warming up. I'm going to use the same foil for a minute. And get some more card. I've got a huge stack of card I've cut up to try to do things. Probably got far too much. There's a nice small piece. Okay, so I'm going to foil that piece. So it's nice and warm. Put my foil on, put my card on, put my two shims on. Oh, card's moved. Okay, it's just coming back up to temperature, the red light's flashing, so I'm going to wait till it goes green and then I'm going to roll it. Just going to reposition the camera. So slide the base out, straight to the die cutting machine. Forwards and backwards. Slide it back on the base. Now I usually do that when I'm foiling so that it stays hot. I'm just going to open the lid, take off my card shims very carefully. I've got some fingernails so that helps. Pick that up. Okay, let's leave that there a minute. Right, now I said I was going to be talking about overfoiling, and if I look at this, you can see the foil has stuck at the sides. Okay, so let's peel back and see what's happened. Okay, so you can see I've got foil in places I didn't want it. Okay. just bear with me a moment. Okay, so that is not going to brush off. Okay, that's not the sort of overfoiling that you can brush away. Okay, so you might think, oh, I've got too much pressure. So you might want to try foiling only using one card shim. So I'll do that next and see what happens. Although I think it's going to be quite patchy. So I'm going to cut my foil off again. Get another piece of card. That'll be big enough. Yeah, that'll be big enough. Okay. So this is still nice and hot. My big piece of foil, my piece of card. Only one of my shims this time. Okay, it's still on green, so I'm good to go. Again, I'm going to slide that straight back in so it stays hot. Shim, card, move the camera. Okay, so let's see what's happened. Camera's crooked. Let's see what's happened this time. Okay, so now give it a brush. Let me hold that up to the camera. In fact, bear with me, I'm going to go and get another light. Okay, so I've just got another light and moved it. So if we look on here, you can see there are now bits of foil missing from this. So I'm going to get the camera to focus on that. Okay, so I haven't actually got enough pressure now to foil this hot foil stamp. And actually, if I look carefully on this one, there are also bits of foiling missing on this edge here, within the leaves. The edge of the leaf is there, but the solid part within the leaf is not. So, what do we do? Because we can't keep adding pressure, because that's going to make this worse, isn't it? And less didn't work. So the answer is to trim your foil. So let me cut another piece of foil. And then I can cut that to a better size. Let me just check that's going to be big enough. That's plenty big enough, in fact. I can trim a bit more off. Now I'm using a nice big pair of very sharp scissors to cut my foil. It's what I find best because I can cut straight across a roll. I don't end up with wiggly or jagged lines. Now I'm just going to snip the corners as well, because I find that helps. The corners quite often will manage to tip down and touch the warm card, and you end up with just the tip of a corner, giving you some overfoiling. So there we are. So I've cut my foil. So back to the GoPress, and I'm actually going to add in also a third shim. So now I've got 1, 2, 3 spare pieces of card, plus the card I'm going to foil onto. So I have another piece of here. So my GoPress is nice and warm because it's been back on its base. It's all ready to go. So foil, card, 3 shims, close the lid, pull it out and roll it through the die cutting machine. Just going to make sure that's focused. I feel that that's tighter now when it hits the hot foil stamp. Slide it back onto the base. There's my 3 shims. And my foiled card. Okay, so here's my card. Just trying to get the camera so you can get a good view of this. Okay, so I'm going to peel it back. It's not stuck down anywhere, that's a good sign, even though I had an extra shim. And I can peel it back. I'm going to give it a brush. Okay, now, except for 1 or 2 tiny spots, that's foiled really nicely all the way over. Let's get the camera to focus on it. There. So that's really quite a good piece of foiling. I've got a little bit of overfoiling just here in 1 or 2 small places. So let's look at what we do with that. And in fact, I'm going to move my camera. And grab my gadgets. So bear with me a moment. I think that's better. Right. No, it's not. There we are. That's better. Now we can see each other. Right, well you can see what I'm doing and I can get the camera to focus in the right place. So, I've got several, let's move the foil out of the way. I've got several things I use for removing overfoiling. I've got a Tombow Mono sand eraser and I use the white end, and that's quite good if you've got sort of in between letters and things. So if I rub there, because the foil is pushed into the card, if I'm very gentle it won't spoil my foiling. Okay, I've got a Faber-Castell. It's an eraser in the form of a pencil, and this is sold for rubbing out coloured pencil. Try and get that to focus. Oh, I see what. Oh, that's better. Right, it's not focusing on it though. Come on, focus on the end of my pencil for me. No, it's not going to focus on it. But that's quite good. You can sharpen it and use that for getting to various spots to take off some overfoiling. And then my latest gadget is this creative detailer from Couture Creations, and it basically, it's got a rubber in the end, but it's got a battery in it that spins the rubber. So you press the button in and you just very gently touch your card and it will rub your foil away. Okay, I've got the kind of the thicker end in at the moment. It comes with a thin one as well, so that can also be very good. As I say, you can very gently go over with this. So sometimes with hot foil stamps it's difficult to get that kind of Goldilocks where you get the perfect foiling and not any over foiling. I think what I might do with this is go back to 2 card shims and maybe fold a sheet of paper in half and see if that gives me just the right amount. Okay, so it all depends on the pressure from your die cutting machine. Okay, so there's nothing any of the hot foil stamp manufacturers can do to solve this problem of sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. Depends on the card, depends on the foil, and really depends on your die cutting machine and its exact pressure. So I've left that one on there. So I'm going to do it one more time on some different card, and I'm going to go back to only 2 card shims. So here I've got, because people also ask what's the best card for foiling onto. My answer is generally the card that you want the foil on. Coated cards can work better than uncoated cards. Some uncoated card works great, some doesn't. I'll show you in a minute what happens with the ones that don't. So I'm just going to take half of this. Okay, and I'm going to use the same hot foil stamp and we'll do it again. So let me take another piece of foil. Try and get that way you can see. There we are. Okay. So there. So I've got a piece of foil. I've already trimmed it, and I've got a piece of pearl card I'm going to put on there, and find my 2 shims, not 3. Put one back. So 2 shims. This has started flashing red, so I'm going to wait for it to go green. There we are, it's gone green, doesn't take long. And then I'm going to roll it, so pull it out. There we are, push it back in. Okay, now I'm going to change the hot foil stamp and do something different. So while I'm here, I'm going to pick that up using my pick and lift. If you've not figured this out, the magnet pokes through the hole. Let me just get that, yeah. So the magnet, you use it, so whole side down, push it together, pick up, go to your mat, and then just open the tweezers and that will drop because it will pull the magnet away from your hot foil stamp. So let's look at something like this. Now that's quite an intricate hot foil stamp. Like an intricate die, it's best to work with it lengthways. Okay, so I'm going to put it on there. There's grid lines on the heated surface so you can get it straight. I'm going to leave that to warm up. Sorry about this. Let's get down a little bit. There. Okay, so I think you can. That's it, get my glass mat in focus. So let's see what it did this time. So this is 2 shims on, get it to focus, 2 shims on some pearl cardstock, and it certainly hasn't missed any bits. There's one tiny bit just there where it's over foiled. Okay, and I'm going to use my creative detailer. Take that off. I'm going to have a brush first. Let's give it a brush. And then I'm going to use the creative detailer just to remove that little piece of foil. Well, that's interesting. I'm actually leaving smears on my card. What if my rubber's dirty? That's better. I think I must have picked up something mucky off my glass mat. There. So that's removed that extra piece of foil that was there. I don't know why the lighting on this keeps going so peculiar. Come up. Not too far. Now I get focus as well. There we are. So, using a pearlescent cardstock, then my foiling has come out better, only using 2 shims. Right, so that's that. So now on to this bigger one. So I just want to show you what the possibilities are. Now let me show you some more foil as well, because I have got lots of foil. I've got Todo foils and I use those quite a lot. And I've also got a big box of foils. This box is so big you can't actually see into it. Okay, let me try and just tip it slightly. Ooh. Yeah, I can't even get it on camera. Right, so I've got foils I bought on eBay by the meter on the card from various suppliers on eBay. More there. I've got bits of leftover and waste foil in a packet. I've got some more big rolls of foil. I've got lots of Couture Creations foils. Now, when you're starting out, the best advice I can give you is use Couture Creations foils. They come in a huge range of colours. They're great value for money. You know they're designed to work with the machine and work at the right temperature and the kind of pressure you're going to get. So they are the most reliable, most versatile option that I have. You know, if I want something, if I've only got the one piece of card in whatever I want to foil onto, and I need it to work first time, I'll use a Couture Creations foil if I possibly can, because that's the most reliable. If I'm experimenting, I might use something else that I've got lots of. And if I've got other foils that I've used a lot and I know well. But best advice I can give you is use the Couture Creations GoPress foils. As I say, they are good value for money for a 5 metre roll. 5 metres goes quite a long way. Okay, and the width of them suits the width of the machine, so it all works well. Okay, so but what shall I use? I've got that one in there. People always ask me, where do I get my sparkly foil? This, let me get it out. Here's that one. I'll just put these to one side. I've got even more foils, but they're in another box. Okay, this is a commercial foil. I bought it on eBay. It's a Kerr's Light Line foil. That's its original label. It's kind of stuck. Is it stuck together? Yeah, it's kind of stuck together because it was round the foil. But that's what it is. You kind of buy at your own risk. Some of them work great, some of them don't. So if you're willing to take a chance, that's great. This one was a great buy. It seems to fall on just about anything really beautifully. So I'm going to take a chunk of this. Put it over there. I'm going to cut it down to about the width I need. Again, big scissors. They help you cut in straight lines. Okay, I'm going to find some card. Oh, I could foil it onto that. That would look quite spectacular. So again, people say, what can you foil onto? There is no reason why you shouldn't foil onto foil card. So let's do that. I don't need it quite that long. No point in having my foil longer than my cardstock. It'll just stop me seeing what I'm doing. So I'm just going to take it down so it's just about there. Okay, so let's do that one and see how that turns out. So lid up, foil pretty side down. Then I can put my piece of cardstock on. Now I know the edge of that is lined up with the bottom there. Let's do that. Try and get it straight. And I'm going to use 2 shims. Okay, it's gone to flashing red, so I'm going to wait a moment. Okay, I can pull it out. And again, I feel resistance when it gets the hot foil stamp. It's a big hot foil stamp, so it's a bit more resistance than with the smaller ones. Okay, let's see what we've got. Now you'll notice in this video, I haven't got any that I did earlier. This is all what's really happening as I'm showing you. So there we go. So I really just wanted to show you. Now that's not quite straight. Now I'm going to do another video about lining things up and getting them in the right place. It's not as hard as you think, but there's only so much time in this video. Okay, but that really is. Let me see if I can get the camera to get the slightly better lighting on it. Come on, focus on this and get your lighting sorted out. It's trying to be clever because everything's so reflective. It thinks it's too bright in here, but that's lovely. Okay, so you'd think that'd been glittered, and what a nightmare it would be to put glitter like that for a stencil, but that's just beautifully foiled. Okay, so that was a Spellbinders hot foil stamp. So the ones I haven't done yet are the normal cutting dies and the Todo one. So the Todo one is just the same as the others, but I use one less card shim because that's about the difference in thickness. That's about all you really need to know. The other thing I would say is if you're using a big hot foil stamp, this particular one, you can't actually get it anymore. If ever you see it available on the Create and Craft website, snap it up. It'll only be there 5 minutes. But foiling this one's quite tricky because it's a small hot foil stamp at this end and it's a really big one at this end. So I find because of it's like having a big intricate die, you need a bit more pressure. It sometimes means I get a bit of overfoiling at this end, and you kind of have to work at finding that best combination to work with it. Okay, so let me get my Spellbinders one off the machine, and we'll put something else on. Now, I think I'm going to pull the platform over to me so I can show you this next bit. I'm just going to pull that out. Normally I work with it on the base because then it stays hot. Move my foil out of the way. There we are. Right. So, no, that's no good there. It's going to be in the way. I'll put it over there on the box. So, if I want something like this, perhaps down the edge of a piece of card, I can put that on my GoPress and Foil, cutting side up. Really important that you don't put cutting dies with their cutting edge on this surface because it's soft, it will cut it. And there's electrical heating element underneath, and I'm not quite sure what would happen next. So just cutting side up always. Okay, and let's have some different cards, shall we? This is from like a scrapbooking book, or on that. Or I'm torn now. What shall I do? Let's have another piece of this nice pearl card. Okay, so let's assume that this is like a topper. So I'm going to go along the edge of this. So I'm going to put a strip of foil along here. Okay. And then I'm going to, I've made sure I've lined that up so it's straight. I'm going to put let's move the foil over a bit so I can see the lines. Now sometimes I put my foil down, my die down on my card together and tape them in place. And when I do that, I use a low tack decorator's masking tape. Now I'm just using the black lines to line that up. And then I want my 2 shims. And I'm going to hope nothing moves. Okay. I'm going to close my lid and put that back on the GoPress to warm up. Okay, so I've got that. The tape I use when I want to tape things down, And sometimes it's just a case of taping the, get this to focus, sometimes I need the foil not to move on the card, so I'm just taping the foil in place. Sometimes I actually tape the die down as well. So this is the tape I use. I use it when I'm die cutting. Sorry, my camera is crooked. That's better. So this is what I use. And it's available in the UK. I get it in the range, where it's quite reasonably priced. You can get it on Amazon and eBay as well. Possibly in B&Q, though I've not been in there for a while. 3M do a similar decorators masking tape for delicate surfaces that peels really nicely. It very rarely damages my card, very rarely. And if it leaves any residue on the back of my hot foil stamps or my dies, once it's cold, it will just rub off quite easily. Right, so GoPress has warmed up. This is just exactly the same. Now I've only used 2 shims in this. It might not be enough. That's a very light pressure, but it's only a very thin line I'm foiling. And back the other way. You might not need to go back the other way. That's something you could experiment with. Okay. Actually, let me bring this back over. Down a bit. That's it. Okay. So shims. 1, 2. Now I can see on the back of here that the die, I wiggle that, get the brightness up a bit. Can you see that? If I get the camera to focus on there, yeah, you can see the die is pressed into the back of the card, kind of embossed into it. Okay. Let's peel the foil. And there. Don't know what my camera's doing with brightness controls today. Let me try that. There, so you can see that's foiled onto the card. It does look quite sparkly in the flesh, but my camera doesn't want to pick it up, and I don't quite know why. I think Samsung have updated my software and it's not behaving as it normally does. But yeah, you can foil with that. And what might be nice with that is you then take the die cut, just offset it slightly so you end up with a foiled line alongside the die cut. Okay, so let me try the butterfly. So I'm going to use my pick and lift because that's hot. I'm going to take my butterfly set, and I'm only going to use the detail part. I'm going to put that on there and put that back on the base to warm up. And then find some card. Use some of my white card. I don't need a whole sheet. And let's try some different foil, shall we? Remove that big roll before it has an accident. Spot of choice. I can't decide which foil. Right. What have I got in here? What's that to be? Oh, let's have the rainbow. Right. So this is rainbow foil with a cut glass effect in it. Okay, and if I rub my colours going down my butterfly that way. Okay, so that's my foil, that's my card. There we are. Okay. Any shot? Yeah, that'll do. Right, so I've got my butterfly on the GoPress foil, pretty side downwards, card, shims, now it's not going to take very long to warm up. Let me just move the camera slightly. That's warm enough. Now that really didn't felt like it did anything very much at all in the die cutting machine, so we shall see whether or not that's foiled. Okay, the foil's lifted up with the card, so that's a good sign. I'm just going to take that one off. And then I'm just going to do the Cardstock own brand one just for completeness. Okay, let's turn that back round. Okay, so rainbow foil. I've got a bit of overfoiling around the edges, and in the middle. Right, so I'm going to give that a brush. Okay, can you see the extra bits of foil? I'm going to give that a brush. Okay, some of that extra foil's come away, and some of it hasn't. So I'm just going to use my Tombow rubber, if I can find it. There it is, buried under my foil. And just go gently over those edges. Okay, just some bits of overfoiling. Now, ideally, I'd do that again, and I'd only use one shim. Okay, but it does vary depending on the foil and the card and the die, how many shims you need. Okay, I've got overfoiling on there that isn't really coming off nicely, so I'll come back to that one. Let me do this one and then we'll try that one again. So I've got some pretty pink paper here. Have a chunk of that. Now this is paper, so I am going to need an extra shim. And this time, what shall I use? Let me use a Todo foil this time, just to show that I use all the variety. And I'm going to foil it in the blue, this lovely aqua colour. Trim it a little bit. Okay, so my hot foil stamp's been on the GoPress, it's warming up. Put that on, and then I'm going to get all three of my shims. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to roll that through. Oh, no, it's gone red, so I'm not going to roll it through. I'm going to wait the 20 seconds or so that it takes to come to temperature. As I say, best card or paper to foil on really is the one where you want the foil. What you've got to try out. You don't have to try out your foiling on huge pieces of card. They can be tiny pieces. Okay, let me put the butterfly back on. And then we can try that one with less shims in a moment. There, okay, so now I've got my piece of pattern paper. This is paper, it's about 160 GSM this. And it takes the foil really nicely. Okay, so that's Todo foil on a, can't remember the make. It was an 8x8 paper pad. No, brand's gone out of my head. But whatever you've got, try a small piece. Try out hot foil stamp with different foils. Right, so that's that one. Let's do this butterfly again. So again, I'm using, let's get some card, some plain card. .250 GSM plain white card. And I'm going to use my rainbow foil again. I just need to decide which end I want. Yeah, so let's do it. Okay, so I've got my foil. There's my card, and I'm only going to put one card shim in. Oh, I haven't turned the camera, have I? My tripod's slipping because my desk is so untidy. Right, so I've got my foil, my cardstock and one shim. And I'm going to roll that straight through. I'm not sure if I got to the end. Very, very little pressure there. Okay, let's see how that's done. There's my, I'll get the camera to focus on it. There we are. So it's got a very light impression there. And that's foiled quite nicely. You only get a very fine line. Okay. So what we do now is we take our big die and we can cut that out. Okay, but as you can see, you only get a very thin line from the foiling. Okay, so I'm not going to cut that out today, but you get the idea. You can cut yourself out a butterfly. Okay, so I've done that. Was there something else I was going to do? Oh, the Todo one. Right. Oh, yes, two things I was going to do. Done that. No, done the butterfly. Ah, this one. So this very intricate plate. This needs quite some time to warm up on the GoPress before you try foiling on it. So I'm going to put it on and leave it to warm up. Okay, while I sort out what card and what foil. There we are. So, lots of options, lots of different card and foil. Oh, now I've not used, this is from a 12 by 12 pad. I'm going to foil it in the glitter, I think, in the glitter foil on this. It won't be quite the whole hot foil stamp because the piece of card isn't big enough, but I have done the whole thing. And there's a video showing me colouring it in. Now, quite often when I'm cutting my foil, I use my piece of card as a guide. So I can lay that on there, and I can just put a slight crease along there, and that gives me a cutting line. Particularly with these big rolls, because they're quite awkward to hold. It's quite heavy. And I'm using a piece of my low tack tape to keep my roll done up. Right. I'm not going to worry about trimming the foil at the sides. So, is this warm? Probably not. So I'm going to have to wait until it gets warm. Let me just talk about different types of cardstock. So, I've been working on mostly plain white cardstock. I've also sometimes foiled onto silver or holographic cardstock. This is a coated cardstock. It's got that kind of really smooth, shiny surface on it. Okay. I've got some satin finish foil cardstock. That again is a Crafter's Companion one. That does look beautiful foiled. Vellum, haven't covered that. You can foil onto vellum. Just to say, put an extra card shim in because it's really thin. And then I've got some, it's a craft card on one side, and again it's got that shiny surface, so that's a coated card. I've got pearlescent card. I've got printed papers. You know, literally, go for your stash. Go for your oddments box. Find all those little bits of card and just pick a small hot foil stamp or a small part of a hot foil stamp and a little square of foil and try it. And you won't use up an awful lot of foil. You'll have a lot of fun, in fact. So, this should be warm enough now because I've talked for a fair while. So let's see how this turns out. Sorry, the tripod's slipping again. It's because there's so much mess on my table now. Right, so here, up with the lid, foil, put my card in. I'm going to use that sort of muted blue side. Do. Right, I'm going to need some shims. Definitely no more than 2. That might be too much. Let's do 2. I'm going to close my lid. Now, having the lid open and adding in the card draws heat out of the plate, and the GoPress senses that the temperature's dropped a bit because you've drawn the heat out, and then it goes back to warming again. So it maintains the right temperature for foiling. It wasn't long and it's gone back to green. I can feel a fair bit of resistance because it's a big hot foil plate. Right, move my collection of bits of card out of the way. Okay, so shims. My foiled card. Right. Let's see what we've got. Make sure we're focusing on it. Ooh. I have to turn the brightness up again. That's quite dazzling. It would probably be better on a plain piece of card, I have to be honest. But it's foiled quite nicely. Try and get close up. Oh, that's better. There you go. So, I've used big, I've used small, I've used all the different makes. I've used different brands and types of foil, different types and brands of card. So that should give you a good starting point. Let me just get that in focus. I'll do a follow-up video on positioning things, because there's a couple of different ways I use of positioning things. There are other videos on my YouTube channel, but again, I think it would be useful to go over it again, because some of them I put up when I first discovered things, and having worked with various ideas since, some of my ideas have changed a little bit. So there's that, and I'll do a separate video on the cut foil and embossed dies, because there's quite a few ways you can try and get the kinks out of those working. You can use the Couture Creations conversion plate. You can use a couple of thin metal shims. You can use thin metal shims with some card shims. You can use thin metal shims under, over, in between. I'll come back to it. It's too much to cover in one video. But as I say, that's your starting point. And as I say, go through your bits box and try out some bits of card and just get a feel for how different types of card behave when you're foiling. Okay, thank you for watching.